A Simplex converted to a Great Western Railway prairie tank. This is part 5, fitting the regulator assembly. And the first part of the job is to make a special fitting for the bush on the smokebox tube plate. I'm making this fitting from a piece of leaded bronze. This is like phosphor bronze, but it's easier to machine. This special fitting is a bit strange really. First of all, I need to reduce the outside diameter to 5/8 of an inch. And this diameter needs to continue for about half an inch. It takes a while and you get an awful lot of nice swarf, and all the particles are very sharp. The jobs that I'm currently doing in the lathe will make much more sense when I finish the part, because for the moment I'm only making a special plug for the end of the boiler. Once the boiler's had the hydraulic test, then I will make the part properly. I don't need to remake it, I will just need to modify this part that I'm making. Now the diameter is almost at 5/8 of an inch, and once I reach the magic number on the micrometer, it's time to cut the thread. And to do this I'm using a standard die holder, with some help from the tailstock chuck, to keep it in perfect alignment with the work. I could use a tailstock die holder fitted with a 5/8 die, but that would take too much time, so I'm doing it an easy way. The die holder can't wander out of alignment because the tailstock chuck is putting gentle pressure against it most of the time. I'm using my left hand to rotate the die stock, but my right hand is on the handle of the tailstock, just gently following the position of the die stock. In no time at all, the thread is perfectly cut. So I'm now moving the tailstock back out of the way and I just spin the die off the work. And here is the finished thread. The thread is 5/8 by 26 threads per inch. Here I'm just brushing the chippings away so you can see it clearly. The next part of the job is simple. First of all I use a centre drill, then I use a twist drill which is tapping size for 7/16 by 26 threads per inch. Normally for tapping sizes using ME threads I would always select a tapping size drill that was 2 imperial sizes lower than the diameter that I want. But this morning I printed out some charts for tapping sizes and clearance sizes for BA and ME threads, and I pinned it on the workshop wall. So while I was stood near the lathe I looked at this chart, and what it said was use a 10.6mm drill as a tapping size drill for a thread of 7/16 by 26 threads per inch. So I did that, and to my surprise the hole was miles too big. So much for downloading a chart off the internet. And this meant that after all this work, well, it's not a lot of work, I had to start again, because the chart was obviously wrong. The thread's terrible, look at it. So I started all over again, and here I'm turning the external diameter, then I turned it round in the chuck to process the other end. And yes, for the tapping size drill I used 2 imperial sizes down from 7/16 of an inch. I faced across the front just to tidy it up and make sure it was square. Then I took the part and fitted it in the rotary table in my milling machine. This was a horrible job. The cutter was too big for the milling machine. I should have changed it for a smaller one. Anyway, it's not important. All I have to do is cut a bolt head on this piece of metal. You'll see why shortly. Once I'd done that, and I was glad to get rid of the vibration, it was driving me mad. I was back on the bench with the part, making a gasket. This clip shows the view from the front tube plate showing the flange, with the piece of tube from the regulator sticking out of the end. I made a mark on the piece of thread sticking out of the end, then I removed the regulator tube and took the part over to the bandsaw and chopped a bit off. Now you can probably see why both of the threads are 26 threads per inch, because as I screw my fitting into the bush, it simultaneously screws into the pipe from the regulator. As all of this has to be dismantled to finish the job after the boiler test. I didn't use any Loctite 542 on the threads, but when I finally put this together, that's just what I will be using on the threads. Now that the regulator tube is firmly in place, I'm going to drill the holes around the bush on the back head. And you have to be careful when doing this because I do not want to go all the way into the boiler. I just want to drill a shallow hole in the flange only. Initially I spotted the holes using a larger diameter drill through the holes in the regulator gland fitting. On screen at the moment I'm using a smaller drill. This is tapping size for 6BA. And as I showed a few moments ago, I made a felt tip pen mark on the drill so I could see how far it was going into the hole. All I have to do now, using a 6BA tap, is thread every one of the holes that I've just drilled into the bush. I feel that it's only fair to warn beginners you need a very delicate touch for this. You do not want to snap off the tap in the bush. Over the years, I've worked on parts like this on many miniature steam locomotives, and now and again I will find that most of the holes are okay and there's a bolt in there holding the part to the boiler, but on occasion, often to my surprise, I have found that one of the bolt heads is just superglued into the hole, because either in the hole is the remains of a tap or a sheared bolt. For the boiler test, I'm using these brass bolts, but when I finish the job I'm going to make some stainless steel bolts, because not only will they look better, they will be stronger. And to the viewer who asked, why do I use stainless steel bolts, what's the point of that? And I replied, trying not to be sarcastic, because they don't go rusty. I'm fitting all the boiler plugs at the moment, and the story so far is the only part that I have left to make is something to close this aperture in the top of the boiler. I'll make that in the next episode, followed by taking the boiler to the steam workshop for the hydraulic test. The reason I haven't continued to make the part that fits over the dome cover opening is because it has a dual function and it's quite complicated to make. That's it for now. Stay safe, stay well, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Main Steam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.